असतो सकमया तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमया मृत्योर्मृतं गमया ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः वन्दे मातरम् वन्दे मातरम् सुजलां सुफलां मलयज शीतलां सस्यश्यामलां मातरं वन्दे मातरम् शुभ्रज्योत्स्ना पुलकितयामिनी भुल्लकुसुमित द्रुमदलशोभिनी सुहासिनी सुमधुरभाषिणी सुखदां वरदां मातरं वन्दे मातरं वन्दे मातरम्.
Hi everyone, happy Independence Day and good evening to one and all. My name is Ajuna. I'm your host for today's event and I'm really honored to do that task. See, when you heard this topic, the math behind ChatGPT, I don't know how you guys felt, but in my mind, I felt that, see, even ChatGPT, that can't escape mathematics. Well, we are going to find out it today together. First of all, a very warm welcome to everyone who is attending this event. Your presence is amazing, and the count that is coming up is giving us a good positive feeling that this event is going to be a good and successful event. So, Math Ecstasy, this is an online webinar series, a unique one, I'll say, with a lot of nice topics and great speakers through its journey. And today we have the 15th national webinar on the topic, the math behind ChatGPT. The story of the origin of the group Math Aspirants is very interesting. I am repeating this many times, but still it's very fresh for me. Dr. Vinod Kumar, we all know who is this person, because I don't think any of you don't know Dr. Vinod Kumar. He, in 2017, started a WhatsApp group thinking that students will benefit from it through discussions and interactions and all. So he started this group. But amazing response. Students started to interact very well, and the group number become 2, 3, and now I don't know, it became a lot of mathematics, maths aspirant WhatsApp groups and Google groups and Telegram groups. And the community is so big with a lot of participants across the country and even from outside country. Nowadays, when we have a program, we have participation even from outside India and all over India. It's truly fascinating. And the news about this group is in the newspapers, in the websites. When there is a new program announced, it's everywhere. And people inside and outside are so happy. Mathematics is cherished so much through this group. And the master brain, Dr. Vinod Kumar, is constantly taking efforts to make it grow. And we can see how it is growing through all its achievements, the programs, multiple problem-solving sessions, test series, talks, webinars, and even a lot of variety events with variety topics that is related to mathematics. So one who loves mathematics now actually loves maths aspirants. This is a very famous group now, and I'm also really happy that I'm also part of it. So during this journey, we have our guiding light, Professor 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗵𝗀, Senior Professor, Emeritus Professor of Cochin University of Science and Technology. He's a great teacher, a great mathematician, and who owns a wonderful personality. And we have here Professor 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗵𝗀 for giving a nice introduction to our chief guest. Coming to our chief guest, we are so blessed, I'll say. We are incredibly fortunate to have Professor M. Ram Murty as our chief speaker from Queen's University, Canada, a towering figure in the world of mathematics. He has received a top honor of Canada, and I can't actually number or count his achievements. It's truly priceless, and we are very, very much grateful and thankful. And I don't know what else I can say. We are so happy to have Professor Ram Murty here, and immensely grateful to him for joining us and giving us a very special talk today. The thing is, it's not about the title, it's his talk is making this even more special, actually. And with that said, I'm not making a long talk today because we have a short period of time. Like I said, after the talk, you have a small interactive segment where you should utilize everything that is happening here. Now, I am going to welcome Dr. Vinod Kumar to address this wonderful audience. And thank you everyone for listening to me.
Thank you, Archana. Dear friends, Independence Day greetings to all. Hearty welcome to the 15th National Webinar organized by Maths Aspirants Group. Today is really a blessed day in the journey of Maths Aspirants, as we have the renowned mathematician Professor M. Ram Murty from Queen's University, Canada, in our platform to deliver a talk on the hot topic of current interest, the math behind the ChatGPT. I'm really indebted to you, sir, for being accepting our invitation and joining with us. I also would like to express my sincere thanks to Professor 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗵𝗀, Cochin University of Science and Technology, for helping me, for giving me all the support in the journey of Maths Aspirants, and also for, in particular, for helping me to get connected with Professor M. Ram Murty. I take this opportunity to thank all my teachers, friends, well-wishers, and group members for all the blessings and support in the journey of Maths Aspirants. I also extend my thanks to all the members of the organizing team for organizing this event, for their helps. I'm sure that the coming hour will be really an academically enriching experience for all of us. I welcome everyone to this program. Thank you.
Big thank you for your wonderful words, Dr. Vinod Kumar. I like to mention he is an associate professor of mathematics from TMG College, Tirur, Kerala. And now it's time to welcome Professor 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗵𝗀, Emeritus Professor of Cochin University of Science and Technology, to give a very nice introduction to our chief guest. With all due respect, welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. I had the privilege of introducing Professor Ram Murty a couple of times earlier. One word about the Math Ecstasy and Math Aspirants group. Vinod Kumar and his team has been doing this for last maybe 8 years quite well, which is very much needed for the present students who are not very serious about what should they do after graduation. So this is a wonderful program, and I wish, before I introduce the speaker, I wish all of us Independence Day greetings, and I may take 2-3 minutes to introduce the speaker. As you all know, Ram Murty is from Queen's Research Chair and A.V. Douglas Distinguished University Professor at Queen's University, Canada. He's a PhD from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which he obtained in 1980, and then he continued at Institute of Advanced Study, Princeton, Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, Mumbai, and also McGill University, Canada, and several other universities. His numerous accolades include Coxeter James Prize, Franz Junior Balaguer Prize, and then he has been elected fellow of the several prestigious academic and society like the Royal Society of Canada, American Mathematical Society, and the Canadian Mathematical Society. He is also a recipient of Simmons Fellowship and 𝗕𝗵𝗵𝗁 Research Fellowship. And most recently in 2024, he received the very prestigious Prize for Excellence in Graduate Supervision and the CRM Fields IMSc Prize, which is Canada's top honor in the mathematical sciences. Professor Murty has been visiting several institutions in the country and has authored 300 research papers and 15 books, including a very beautiful book on a first course in graph theory and combinatorics, jointly with Sebastian 𝗖𝗵𝗵𝗁 of USA. And apart from his mathematical interest, we had the privilege of interviewing him for a science magazine from Kerala a couple of years back on his strength on mathematical logic and Indian philosophy. And he has also written a book on Indian philosophy, which I'm sure.
Okay, well, thank you very much for the introduction. I hope people can hear me.
Yes.
A very happy Independence Day to everybody. Thank you, Professor 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗵𝗶 Kumar, as well as Professor Vinod Kumar and the Math Aspirants group in Kerala. I'm honored to be part of your program. And I'm also honored to be part of the Kerala mathematical tradition, which has a long tradition in India as contributing calculus, etc., to the Madhva school, for example, is a very famous thing. Now, should I start trying to share my screen? So the infinite monkey theorem states that a monkey hitting keys at random on a typewriter keyboard for an infinite amount of time will almost surely type any given text, including the complete works of William Shakespeare. So this is a mathematical fact based on probability theory. But before we ask it to type the complete works of William Shakespeare, maybe we'll just ask it to type the word banana. And basic probability theory tells you there are 50 keys on the keyboard, and banana has 6 letters. So the probability that the monkey will type banana is 1/50⁶. And the probability that it will not type the word banana is 1 minus 1/50⁶, because probabilities have to add up to 1. And the fact is 1 minus 1/50⁶ is a number which is less than 1. And if you keep on taking the nth power of a number less than 1, you know from basic calculus that that goes to 0. So almost surely the monkey is going to type the word banana very fast. And when it does do that, we will, of course, call it an Einstein monkey. Now, I just want to tell you that ChatGPT is not much different from this phenomenon. The keys are not letters. The keys are sentences, complete sentences. So if a monkey is typing random keys and the keys are all complete sentences, each sentence is going to make sense. The other thing that you need to know is that the moment you type one key, the keyboard is going to change, and so that the next random key that's typed continues to make sense. So this is ChatGPT. The keys are actually sentences or phrases, and the keyboard keeps changing. So if you understand that, you will then understand that ChatGPT is not as miraculous as it looks. So ChatGPT is not that much different. Instead of having 50-letter keys, the typewriter has billions of sentence keys, or more precisely, phrase keys. It has access to all the internet pages developed before September 2021. I mean, the later versions probably have more access, more pages, but at least the earlier version of ChatGPT has access to all these pages before 2021. And we're all familiar with the micro program on your smartphone that predicts the next word as you're trying to type some text to a friend. Well, ChatGPT is a magnified version of the same idea where it tries to predict the next sentence given your current sentence. So understanding how ChatGPT works will give us a better idea of what it can do and what it cannot do. And it also raises the question of whether there's a mathematics of language or mathematics of meaning. So I want to kind of use this talk to explain to you how ChatGPT is working, what it can do, what it cannot do, how many mistakes it can make. But at the same time, there are some positive aspects, and that is, what is the mathematics of language and what is the mathematics of meaning? So these are the questions that I'd like to put in front of you. So what can ChatGPT do? Here's an impressive example of what it can do. Let us ask it an existential question that is often in our minds. What's the purpose of life? Okay, it just spits out very nicely 5 reasons for living, I suppose. The question of the purpose of life is deeply philosophical and existential. It has been pondered by humans for centuries. All sentences make perfectly good sense. Different individuals and cultures have varying perspectives and beliefs. Here are a few different viewpoints. So it presents first spiritual or religious reason for or purpose. Second, personal fulfillment and happiness. And then it goes on, making a positive impact in the world, try to improve something in society, relationships and connections between people, try to build nurturing connections and meaningful relationships. And the other, just to discover your own self or discover new knowledge. So these are the kind of explanations or reasons for living, the purpose of life according to ChatGPT. And it's finally, there's always a disclaimer, as it were. It is important to note that these perspectives are not exhaustive, and individuals may have their own unique understanding and life's purpose based on personal beliefs, values, and experiences. Ultimately, the purpose is a personal one, deeply personal one, a subjective question, and may vary from person to person. And so this is a kind of a general disclaimer, but you know, the explanation is not bad. It's a pretty grammatically correct, coherent explanation of a question, and it reasonable answer. Now, there are really only 2 answers here. One is you either accept a divine plan or you accept a human plan. And the last sentence is, of course, very general. So now let's ask the question again. What is the purpose of life? So I'm just asking the question again and see what it comes up with. Well, it comes up with a slightly different answer, but it's more or less the same answer. Nice essay again, but it permutes the reasons. The 5 reasons are just permuted around, and the sentences, of course, are more or less the same, but not identical. This is an important feature. They're not exactly the same, so it's not a robotic explanation. It sounds as if it's a person that's talking to you. The opening paragraph is similar, but not identical to the previous reply. The variations are minor, where certain adjectives are moved around. The divine plan reply, which was number 1 in the previous exchange, has now moved to number 3, and what was number 2 has been moved to number 1. So this is basically what we see from this explanation. I'm not going to go and read all this, but it's a beautiful essay for sure. The final summary is nearly identical, but not exactly to the earlier summary. So what is actually going on? Well, I want to now ask another question, the meaning of life versus the purpose of life. So from our perspective, the meaning of life and the purpose of life are different, though they're related. But for ChatGPT, they seem to be the same. The meaning of life is a profound and philosophical question, so it's blurting out the same kind of answers. Again, 5 in number, and then a disclaimer at the end. So the template for the response is pretty similar to both all these questions, and it's just a permutation and modification, minor modifications of the earlier thing. So the sentences make complete sense. They're essentially the same as the earlier response. They're meaningful, but no incisive distinction has been made to parse the definitions of meaning versus purpose. So now, okay, that's fine. That's a philosophy question, spirituality question, fine. You can say all sorts of things, and how are you going to check anything? Let's now ask a math question, because math questions are very precise, and you have to have the answers correct. And I decided to ask it questions on which I'm more or less an expert on this, just to find out what it knows and what it doesn't know, and what it gets wrong. So I asked this to a primitive root for infinitely many primes. And it says, yes, it is believed that 2 is a primitive root. The statement is known as ardent primitive root conjecture. And it suggests that for any integer a greater than 1, there exists infinitely many primes p, for which a is a primitive root mod p. However, this conjecture has not been proved, and it remains an open problem in number theory. Now, since I'm the expert, I'll tell you this answer is actually wrong. It's not true for any positive integer a. And it is this second statement is not correct. So these are errors in the response. The number 4 cannot be a primitive root, and I'm not going to get into the technicalities, but maybe the experts who are attending will realize that this is clearly false. And so I ask, is 4 a primitive root for infinitely many primes? And it gets the answer right this time. No, number 4 is not a primitive root. But it doesn't realize that what it just said, it contradicts the earlier paragraph. But the paragraphs by themselves make linguistic sense, but they don't make mathematical sense. So for the case 4, it now says we can observe that for the p minus 1 over 2 is congruent to something or other. I'm not going to get into the technical details because this is supposed to be a general audience talk. But I want to say it copied this piece from a paper. Remember, it has access to all these internet pages. So it's copying and pasting pieces of the internet as a response to my queries. My guess is that this is copied from a paper that is proving that -4 is not a primitive root. And it's not the question of having 4 being a root. So it's not able to make this distinction, this nuance. And I say, well, you're wrong. And so it makes an apology. I apologize for the incorrect statement. You're right. My proof was incorrect. The number 4 is it's getting it wrong again. The number 4 is a primitive root modulo some primes. And it says 4 is a primitive root mod 7, 19. And in general, 4 is a primitive root mod p if and only if p is of the form. And sadly, this is totally wrong. So, but it's giving it a thank you for pointing out the mistake. I apologize for any confusion. Now, if you are not an expert, you may take this at face value and think that, yeah, this is probably right. So you see, I warn youngsters who are using ChatGPT to do their math questions, please be careful. It really hasn't gotten it right. Unfortunately, I say you're still wrong. 4 is a perfect square, can never generate the group. And then it says, okay, yeah, you're absolutely right. I apologize for this mistake. I apologize for the confusion caused. As you're right, 4 is a perfect square. It cannot be a primitive root. And so thank you for pointing out the error. So it's all very polite. At least it's polite, admits it made a mistake. So does it know about my work on Artin's conjecture? And then I ask it, well, who first proved that there's a finite set of primes, that at least one of them is a primitive root? And then it gets it wrong. I'm not hurt by this, but anyway, I'll tell you what it says. It says, Yuri Linnik in 1949 did this. And of course, this is all nonsense. The sentences are coherent, but the facts are all wrong. And then I say, well, I thought my colleague Rajiv Gupta and Ram Murty had proved this. And it says, oh yeah, I apologize for the confusion. You're right. So by that time, I think it had hunted down the papers and found the paper that I wrote with Rajiv Gupta. It now says, you're correct. Rajiv Gupta and Ram Murty made the significant contributions. In 1981, they had proved this Gupta-Murty theorem. It strengthens and extends Linnik's theorem. It's nonsense again. And so it goes on, making perfectly good linguistic sense, but totally off the record for the mathematical sense. So we're not building on the work of Linnik. And I keep telling it this, and then I say the theorem was proved in 1983, and then it says, oh yes, you're correct. 1983, not 1981. And then it keeps on saying, yes, writing sentences which are sensible, but mathematically incorrect. And then it says, thank you for correcting this information. I apologize for any confusion caused by the earlier error. Now I had to do this because I had to make sure whether the math is correct or not. If I chose something else, the theorem is that some element of a finite set is a primitive root for n from the many primes p. So this is basically how I tested how good is ChatGPT with math. The ears are all wrong. Okay, now it's important to note that each sentence of ChatGPT makes grammatical sense, but not necessarily mathematical sense. So we already now found the scope and limitations of ChatGPT. These examples show that how it can get things.
Sir, screen is off.
The screen not.
Please check the screen. It's not shared.
Pardon me?
Your screen is not, we are not able to see your screen.
Oh, I haven't done anything. Can you see it now?
No.
No.
Sir, please
I-
share it.
Pardon me?
Please again share it.
Oh, okay, okay. All right, so please again share it. Okay, let me see. Okay. Select window. Okay, hold on. Are you seeing it now?
No, sir.
Not,
No.
not yet, sir.
Fine.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, good, good. I think there's a little bit of delay probably.
Yeah, it's all good now.
Okay, good, good. Okay, each sentence makes perfect sense, but it can be factually wrong. What is impressive is that it does look like we're having a conversation with it, not at the highest level we imagine. And to be fair, there are warnings that appear when we log into ChatGPT. So to me, the whole thing is pointing to some sort of mathematical theory of language and meaning. So this is a very important problem in mathematics, I think. We haven't started even scratching the surface. ChatGPT originated from the problem of language translation. Given a piece of English prose, let's say we want to translate it into Swahili, the most rudimentary method would be just to replace each word with a Swahili equivalent, but of course we know that that's a horrible way of translating. But they got better and better. The meaning of a word, the meaning of a sentence, the meaning of the word is dependent on the meaning of a sentence. You can use words in different ways, of course. In any language, a word changes meaning according to context. So ChatGPT solves the problem by having a database of the likely phrases that can follow a given phrase, and it is based on probability theory, determined from billions of text on web pages. So I hope everybody's understanding what I'm saying. If you are trying to construct sentences, it's very difficult. But if I already have complete sentences in my database, there won't be any problem. All I have to do is to get the next sentence, which would make sense given the previous sentence. So this is all probability and based on something called conditional probability, which I'll try to explain as simple as possible. It cannot initiate thought, but it can try to complete a thought based on probabilities. So here's an example from Wolfram's blog post. So I type in, the best thing about AI is its ability to, okay, so has to finish it. Well, it goes to its database and finds that ability to learn occurs 4.5% of the time. Ability to predict occurs 3.5% of the time. Ability to make occurs 3.2%. And these words appear with these probabilities. And of course, the highest probability is learn. And the next highest is predict. So it has a database of what can follow. This data is obtained from billions of web pages of human text. Remember, we already have human text, and it's using that as the model. We may think it'll always choose a highest ranked word, but its creative power chooses other words with lower probabilities. This is an important idea. So in order to make it original, instead of sounding like a cliche, it chooses words or phrases that may come after that phrase, which has a lower probability, so that it looks very original and creative. And it has an iteration process. Given a prompt, ChatGPT figures out the next likely word and then uses the sentence so far to to iterate the process and keep going. So it might go on like this. The best thing about AI is the ability to learn from experience, and then it just keeps on going, adding phrase after phrase, sentence after sentence, based on its database of pages. And of course, it's a computer, therefore it can do it very fast. So how does it work? It's just adding one word at a time or one phrase based on what it has so far. And I told you that this is based on what it has so far, means it's conditional on where you are. So I already alluded to probability theory as being at the heart of this whole thing. But now I have to introduce the idea of conditional probability. So probability based on where are you right now? That's what's called conditional probability. So here's a crash course on probability theory. All the possible outcomes of any experiment are called, it's called a sample space. Each element of the sample space is then assigned a particular probability. Probability between probability 0 means it's not likely to occur. Probability 1 means it's probably will occur. So in between you have various probabilities. Now, suppose the event B has occurred. What is the probability that A occurs knowing that B has occurred? This is now called conditional probability. And now, for those of you who have some basic math knowledge, you know that the probability of A given B times the probability of B is the same if both A and B have occurred, so it's probability A intersect B. This is a theorem. You may, for those of who are not mathematicians, don't worry about it. For those who are mathematicians or not, you don't even have to be a mathematician. Any undergraduate knowledge is enough. You can see that this is almost a tautology. Sure. Is there a problem? Okay, it's almost a tautology, and it's actually, this is a very profound tautology. It's called Bayes' rule. It was discovered by Reverend Thomas Bayes in 1791. You know, in the 17th, 18th century, in fact, earlier in the Middle Ages, many of the mathematicians were also in the clergy. They were priests, or they indulged in mathematics. Now, this idea, it may look trivial, but its implications are profound. Let me explain how. This is how Bayes thought about this. Suppose B is a disease and A is a symptom. So if you have a symptom of the disease, how am I so sure that you actually have the disease? So, so this is the probability that A given B. So you have the symptom B. So you want to now check. You can turn this around. Probability that B given A. So you have the symptom. How do you know that you have the disease B? Well, it can, because probability of A intersect B is the same as the probability of B intersect A. You get this profound connection. It looks like a tautology, but believe me, this is a big deal. And in fact, if you have to say, how does medical clinical trials in medicine work? Well, they're using Bayes' rule. Okay. So Bayes' rule can be used to determine if the symptom determines the disease. So you can see the potentiality of conditional probability in everyday life, especially in medicine. Now, ChatGPT is using conditional probabilities, but it's also using graph theory and adjacency matrices. So I'm going to now give you a very quick introduction to graph theory. We can represent words or phrases as nodes of a graph. And a graph is an arrangement of nodes, sometimes called vertices, together with an adjacency relation represented by an edge. So here's an example of a weighted graph. So here are 5 vertices. And the lines that go in between these vertices are called edges, directed edges. And sometimes we put weights on these edges. So it's a weighted graph. So you can see the edge going from A to B, it has a weight of 4. And you can, this is a pictorial representation. Now, as I said, for people who are not mathematicians, let me just give you an intuitive idea what a graph is. Suppose a lot of complicated things are going on in your life or in the world outside, and you're trying to understand what are the relationships between these various events. So you may represent these things as nodes of a graph and then try and see what is the probability that I move from one of these conditions to another condition and represent that by a graph. So the graph allows you to visualize symbolically a complicated process. You can also represent the graph as a matrix, and you may have seen matrices in your basic undergraduate courses. So here's a matrix which represents, it's a 5 by 5 matrix because there are 5 vertices, and the A, B entry is 4, which is the weight of that edge. So you can represent the graph visually and on one hand, but you can also represent it as a matrix with these numbers. The matrix of the numbers are harder to visualize what's going on. So for humans like us, the graph is a better way to visualize what's going on. But for a computer, a matrix is a better way because computer doesn't have eyes, it can't see anything. So in our context, the nodes can be words, and the directed edges indicate the possible words that can come after that given word. The weight could be the conditional probability of that word following the given word. So hopefully I've given you some of the basic tools that are kind of going on in this thing. Now, this idea of using graph theory has been used in neural nets and facial recognition. So just a quick idea, in the human brain, there are about 100 billion neurons, and each neuron performs a function. And people now in neuroscience are trying to use graph theory to understand how neurons communicate. So we can represent the neural network by a graph where each node represents a neuron and 2 neurons are adjacent if there's some sort of synaptic connection between them. And when we see an image, some neurons are fired as an electrical impulse and some neurons are not fired. And the firings are compared with our memory database. And when we recognize the image, they say that the firing of the neuron gives rise to a thought. So AI, artificial intelligence, has tried to duplicate the neural network using theory of weighted graphs. So in a nutshell, this is what's going on. So human thought process is being replicated or simulated by a theory of weighted graphs and with these databases. So how can we determine the function of each neuron? We do this by feeding an input vector and seeing what's the output vector. So if you want to figure this is how medical science people in neuroscience try to figure out what is this particular neuron trying to do. They feed a certain impulse and see what comes out. And that way they figure out, aha, this, you may have seen this, this part of the brain is doing vision. This part of the brain is doing speech. How did they figure these out? Well, they sent signals and see what part of the brain is actually responding. And so they could figure this out by that process. And ChatGPT does something similar. Now, okay, I gave you the basic vocabulary for what's going on here, but now I have to get to the hard nitty-gritty deep theorems of mathematics, which I will try to explain to you in as simple as possible. Just try to pay attention, and I'm sure you'll get it. So the basic idea here is the theory of Markov chains. I've already talked about probabilities, but natural language generation is the general name in AI that refers to predicting the next word given the sequence of words so far. And this sounds like conditional probabilities, and indeed there's a branch of mathematics called Markov theory that models this phenomenon. So if a system is in a certain finite number of states and one wants to study how it's going to evolve over time, we model this using graphs where the nodes represent the states of the system and the edge between the two states represent the possibility that you can move from one state to another state. Supposing you are in a happy state at the moment, what is the probability that you'll be moving into a sad state tomorrow? Well, this is the idea behind this modeling. We can attach to each edge a transition probability of the system moving from state X to state Y. And this language generation program study existing text and develop a Markov model. If you know Python, there's actually a key program called 𝗕𝗵𝘁, which will generate text from this model. So there's a lot of this stuff, Python stuff, is also used in the ChatGPT algorithm. So what's the Markov process? Let me try to understand. This is the deep part of mathematics that's inside ChatGPT. So here's an example. So supposing in a town, if it's sunny today, then there's 80% chance it'll be sunny tomorrow and 20% chance it'll rain. If it is rainy today, there's 60% chance that it'll be sunshine tomorrow and 40% chance of rain. Now, how did I get these numbers? You get these numbers by making observations over a year and taking clinical observations and recording them. So data is very important in the Markov theory. So this can be modeled as a two-state Markov process, and we can represent it as a directed graph. So here's a directed graph. If it's sunny today, then it's 80% probability it'll continue to be sunny tomorrow. If it's sunny today, there's a 20% chance, so 0.2, of becoming rainy. And so I've modeled this very simple toy case where there are only two states, sunny and rainy. And I've tried to model this as a directed graph. And then, as I told you, computers don't work with directed graphs. Computers work with numbers. And so you put a matrix associated to this piece of data. Now, here is the amazing theorem. I mean, it just gives me goosebumps when I think about this. If you take that matrix P, that's called the transition matrix, and now you say, that transition matrix is telling me what it'll be for tomorrow. Well, what about day after tomorrow? Well, Markov says you just square the matrix. Amazing. And then if n days from now, what are the problems? You just take the nth power. And then Markov's theorem is that the nth power of this matrix actually converges to a limit. I'm doing a little bit of oversimplification, but this is more or less correct. It converges to a limit, and that limit vector is obtained by solving what's called a linear algebra problem, Vp equals V. So this is the essence of Markov's theorem using this toy example. And in this particular example, when I compute what's called the stationary vector, it turns out 3/4, 1/4 is a stationary vector, which means if it's sunny 3/4 of the time and rainy 1/4 of the time. So this is an amazing theorem. And I took two states to simplify life, but in general, Markov envisioned a process that can have many states. And in the previous example, there were only two states, but one can see that you could have many applications to this two-state kind of process, but there could be many states. And in many states, there's a general n by m matrix. It's a larger matrix, and that's the transition probability matrix. And Markov's theorem says, essentially, I kept telling you, I'm oversimplifying a little bit, but it's more or less correct. That t to the n converges to a limit, and this limit vector can be obtained by solving this linear algebra problem. So the jth component of the vector encodes the probability of the process being in state j at time infinity. So the computer can do this calculation instantaneously. Now, Markov was a mathematician that lived in the 19th century, and here he is. He was actually an invalid. It was a cripple, actually, and his wife was very helpful to him. She was not a mathematician, but she learned mathematics. So the theory of Markov chains can thus be described as a mathematical study of recurrence. And Markov started out in number theory working with 𝗕𝗵𝘁, and his doctoral thesis developed the theory of continued fractions. For some of you who are in number theory, you'll realize that continued fractions is really a theory of recurrence. And recurrence is at the heart of much of Markov process. So his thesis was outstanding. He was immediately appointed extraordinary professor at Petersburg University in Russia. His first paper developing the theory of recurrent chains was written in 1906, but it was only 20 years later, in 1926, that another mathematician, Bernstein, saw its importance and gave it the name Markov chain. So you see, the idea of Markov chains was discovered in 1906 by Markov, but nobody paid attention to the paper. It was only after his death, sadly, that people started paying attention to this paper. For most of his childhood, Markov used crutches because he had an inborn deformity in his knee. And at the age of 10, he had an operation on his knee. Afterwards, he was able to walk only with a slight limp. Later in life, he developed an aneurysm in his leg, which led to multiple surgeries. And one of these operations, unfortunately, was not successful. And Markov died of sepsis. He was only 66 at the time. So it's kind of a, I think I always promote that if you want to study mathematics, you should also study the life of mathematicians. You all heard of Ramanujan, for example. Ramanujan's life story is well known, but there are other mathematicians also from around the world who have made important contributions, whose work we're using all the time. And it is probably an important idea to study this thing. So here he is, started out in number theory, and all of a sudden makes this big discovery. And what does it turn out to be? It turns out to be the main tool in the Google search engine. It is the main tool in ChatGPT. Now, just to give you an idea of what's called math genealogy, so Markov was taught by 𝗕𝗵𝘁. You might have heard of 𝗕𝗵𝘁. He also did number theory, also did probability theory. And Markov taught a person by the name of 𝗕𝗵𝘁, who was caught in the Second World War and emigrated to the United States in the 1940s. And taught a person by the name of 𝗕𝗵𝘁, who you may have heard of if you're a number theorist, a famous number theory person. And 𝗕𝗵𝘁 taught Harold Stark, and Harold Stark taught yours truly. So there is a connection here between me and Markov. So thought I'd show that in. Now, the Google search engine works on Markov chains. It's built on that. The user types in a keyword, and immediately Google retrieves all the URLs with that keyword, creates a directed graph, creates these probabilities, and plugs in the Markov theorem, figures out the stationary vector, and spits out the ranking, the page ranks. By the way, the idea of using Markov chains as a search tool originates in a paper of Motwani, who's an Indian, who sadly was a professor at Stanford, but had a premature death. It was his two graduate students, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, who took this and made it into the Google, marketed as a Google thing. So this is, I don't know if many people know this story or not. In other words, Google has mathematically defined the importance of a particular URL by the number of other URLs that point to that. So it's really some sort of internet popularity contest. So now I'm telling you how Google is working. And so you'll realize because Google is working as a popularity contest, it is also has weaknesses. In other words, if there's some important idea there, but not many people know about it, well, then it will not be on the Google's radar. So it's very, very important that if you're searching for something, don't rely on the computer alone. Please go to the library and look up things for yourself. The success of the Google algorithm has been taken further in this language program. So the Google translator started using the Markov algorithm, and then ChatGPT evolved out of these Google translator programs. So the motivation is to imitate the neural network of the brain. Now, please do not jump to the conclusion, as some neuroscience people do, that we have figured out how a human being thinks. We haven't. So neural nets. In the human brain, we receive sensory input through our 5 sense organs, and these are then processed by neural network in the brain, and then we respond appropriately. So you see somebody, and then your memory bank quickly, oh yeah, I met that guy, this person, this person's name, and then all sorts of associations come into your head, and then you respond accordingly. So the question is, can we model this mathematically? And the one model is that it's a popular AI model. So here are a bunch of inputs, and then there's a certain bias function. The bias is your own memory stuff. Then there's an activation function, and then it spits out some various responses. So you have an input vector, and it's then processed using weights. The weights are determined by your empirical data given rise to an output. The output is then modified by an activation function, and then the output is given. So this is basically what's going on. Of course, you may have various layers. So how does ChatGPT handle this? So here's a bird. I have to figure out, is that a bird or not? Well, a baby can tell that's a bird instantaneously, but ChatGPT has to search all its memory and pixelate the image that it has, and then compare it with so many other pictures of birds, and using probability theory finally spits out, yes, it's a bird. You know, so unfortunately, it's using up a lot of energy and also polluting the environment while it's at it. Okay. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but there is an important idea from linear algebra called the dot product, which is a generalization of ordinary multiplication of numbers, but now you do it with vectors. By looking at what neurons are fired and which ones are not, you get an output vector. And then the computer will do this by trial and error based on billions of human input data. So there's a bias function too, some sort of B vector that translates. So each person's response to the same input is different, right? So there's a bias vector as well. It tries to model this, and it uses 3 functions, basically what's called the refracted linear unit fraction, the hyperbolic tangent function, and the sigmoid function. By using these functions to calibrate the vector, it produces, it iterates and refines its own process. So that's what's called learning, the learning algorithms. Now, so the facial recognition algorithm, this is essentially the algorithm behind the facial recognition problem, how to distinguish between a cat and a dog. Now, as I told you, a baby can tell instantly, that's a cat, that's a dog. But ChatGPT, it's a big problem. And it has to collect all these pictures of cats and all these pictures of dogs, and somebody has to tell which is the cat, which is the dog, and it's doing this all by basing it with the vector, probability vectors. By feeding the computer millions of images of cats and millions of images of dogs, it is able to determine these weight vectors of probabilities and eventually learn to distinguish between the two by deriving the mathematical function. So if you give me an input and it'll apply this math, and if it's on this side of the vector, it's a cat. If it's on that side of the vector, it's a dog. That's basically how this algorithm is working. And the function does not have a simple form, but is determined recursively and through so many inputs. So it's not a function like sine x, e to the x, or x squared, or whatever that you're familiar with. It's those iterations of those 3 basic functions that I mentioned on the previous slide. This iteration is what is called machine learning, and it's learning by millions and millions of examples. Okay. After studying billions of images, the program can finally tell the difference between Snoopy and Garfield. So is it Snoopy or is it Garfield? As I told you, a baby can do this instantly, but ChatGPT requires so much data. GPT, what does it mean? Generative Pre-trained Transformer, that's what that means. In 27, Vaswani, another mathematician of Indian origin, and others wrote a paper where they introduced what's called the transformer method of learning into fundamental ideas discovered earlier involving one layer. I told you about the one layer approach. This involves a multi-layered approach, and you keep on iterating the process and fine-tuning it so that you get it a little bit more accurate. And this corresponds to my earlier thing when I was pointing out to ChatGPT that they made mistakes. That kept being fed back in the iteration process so that the next time somebody asks that same question, it'll get it right, simply because it had corrected itself in the process. So now I'm going to raise some philosophical questions. What is knowledge? At the human level, knowledge seems to be pattern recognition. This pattern recognition gives us a metaphysical perspective of the physical process. By contrast, ChatGPT is using a stochastic model. Stochastic, this means probability theory. Okay, so don't worry about the fancy word. It's using a probability model to determine iterative functions underlying the process, but cannot reduce it to a single equation or formula. And so this raises some fundamental questions, both philosophical and mathematical. The meaning of a sentence is dependent on the sentences before and the sentences after. The meaning is contextual and relational. And ChatGPT has discovered how to build meaningful sentences, but beyond that, one needs a higher order of relations between sentences. And to me, this suggests that there must be a new mathematical theory of language waiting to be discovered. And this, with the Indian connection, somehow maybe we should re-examine, re-study Panini, Sanskrit grammar from a mathematical perspective and see whether we can learn something about language from that fundamental thing. Because in Panini's grammar, the modularity of the language, permutations of the thing still does not change the word. Now, what is mathematics was a question asked by many mathematicians. George Boole, for example, was trying to build a school of logic. Now, logic originates in the Nyaya school in 6th century BCE, but they didn't certainly formulate any mathematical law. And Aristotle also talked about logic, but he didn't formulate any mathematical law. But it was George Boole who tried to figure out, oh, is there a mathematical theory of thought and laws of thought? So he came up with this binary logic, Boolean algebra. And then you have the famous Principia Mathematica, written by Alfred North Whitehead and Bertrand Russell. And on page, what is it? I think page, I forgot what page, 360, okay, page 362 in the second edition, they finally proved that 1 + 1 = 2. So this is, they were trying to figure out how does a human mind do mathematics? And they were not joking around, they were dead serious. And it's interesting that Bertrand Russell has, I don't know, this is too tiny for maybe people to read, but Bertrand Russell had this funny dream where the librarian at Cambridge had looked at his books and was just throwing them away into the garbage bin, saying this is probably irrelevant. And it's a very interesting dream because shortly after Principia Mathematica appeared, Gödel came up with this, what's called the incompleteness theorem, showing that logic has limitations. So logic is based on a certain bunch of axioms, and there will be propositions that you can neither prove nor disprove in any given system. So this incompleteness of any system was shown in 1931. So there is really no way you can try to come up with some sort of laws of thought in a mathematical sense by Gödel's theorem. Now, these are all fascinating things. I mean, mathematics is not a joke. Of course, most of you know this. It's a very powerful tool, one of the best tools perhaps we have. But there must be something beyond. I mean, there must be some sort of science of consciousness. I don't know, or mathematics of consciousness. I have no idea. But I want to put these ideas in front of you and tell you something. Some scientists and philosophers are thinking that, hey, you know, ChatGPT, we figured out what is thought, what is thinking. We figured this out. And I'd like to now say that doesn't sound like a proper thing. In Indian philosophy, you know, we see body, mind, and consciousness as being separate, with both body and mind being material. So in classical Indian philosophy, we say body is material, mind is material, but consciousness is not. And if you look in the Taittiriya Upanishad, they talk about 5 layers of the human being: the Annamaya Kosha, the Pranamaya Kosha, the Manomaya Kosha, the Vijnanamaya Kosha, and finally the Anandamaya Kosha. And you can see the Annamaya Kosha and the Pranamaya Kosha. Pranamaya Kosha is basically the neural network. And the Manomaya Kosha, these are kind of material, and somehow there's a higher beyond that level. In Viveka Chudamani also similar classification is made. Now, if anything, ChatGPT is remarkable. There's no doubt about it, but it's all I told you also makes mistakes. ChatGPT not only prompts us to look at the mathematical theory of thought, but it also to consider the philosophical implications of what we mean by knowledge, knowing, and consciousness. So what do these mean? Now, as I said, knowledge at some basic level is pattern recognition. If that's the case, then ChatGPT has been applied very well, by the way, in trying to find patterns in a whole corpus of facts and knowledge. So this seems up to bring us to the frontier of the future, and a warning, perhaps, of the future. A great philosopher once said that with every technological advance, the human being loses the ability to use a part of the brain. So be careful when we rely so much on AI that we may be losing our ability to think. So let me end with this, that I realize you're used to talking to me on a chat line, but do you have to keep moving your hands like you're typing every time you say something? So we are going to be conditioned by the new technology, so you have to be vigilant, perhaps, in this kind of conditioning. So questions raised by ChatGPT. What is consciousness? This is the fundamental question. What is thought? What is creativity? Is human thought a Markov process built on stored memories? What exactly is intelligence? Is there a mathematical definition of intelligence? What is originality? What is the nature of truth? A poem is very easy to write. ChatGPT does a good job writing poems, writing essays. They're neither right nor wrong, but a mathematical theorem is either right or wrong. So, and that's where ChatGPT gets stuck. With math, it's quite bad. So this seems to suggest some sort of hierarchies of truth and knowledge. So mathematical truth and mathematical creativity seem to be at a higher level than literary truth. So then the question is there a mathematics of language? So whatever be the case, there are fundamental philosophical questions that are raised by the emerging artificial intelligence. So the brain and its neural network seems to be the final frontier of science. Final frontier is you yourself. You are the final frontier. So let me end with this Aurobindo's poem, an algebra of mind, a scheme of sense, a symbol language without depth or wings, a power to handle deftly outward things are our scant earnings of intelligence. So what I want to point out to you is that ChatGPT is putting a lot of energy, wasting a lot of energy, but it's putting a lot of energy. And all we have are these very scant earnings of intelligence. ChatGPT does lead us to ask some fundamental questions about what is mind and what is thought. The problem of the mind and consciousness, problems of mind and consciousness are bringing together many remote disciplines in which mathematics will be playing a fundamental role. The future is exciting, so no longer are we to view mathematics, linear algebra, graph theory, all these as parts of mathematics, but we have to view them as part of a larger picture where math is integrated and interrelated with other branches of knowledge like neuroscience and other aspects. But at the same time, even though this is very powerful, we should control the future and we should not become the victims of AI. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really wonderful. And I am moving to the interactive segment with your permission. Is that all right, sir?
Sure. Go ahead. I think things are a bit slow with the distance.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Yeah.
So
Good evening.
myself, 𝗕𝗵𝘁𝗳, I am from Vellore Institute of Technology, VIT Vellore. So my
Hi.
doubt is that does ChatGPT ends in a loop, sir? If we are studying in a particular Markov chain or a Markov model, so does it went in a loop of finding something? So if you are finding a transition probability matrix kind of thing, does it end in a loop kind of thing?
It could if the matrix is of a skewed type, but generally not. Generally not, but it could, in some cases it can.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Hello, sir. I'm Arnav, and my doubt is that many times AI model hallucinates. So, what actually goes wrong in those hallucination situation? Because mathematically everything seems correct, the Markov chains are seeming to be
Yeah.
all right, but why do
Yeah.
AI models behave like that? Before it was in ChatGPT 2, it was a lot, but recently in ChatGPT 5, it has reduced significantly.
Yeah, it's reduced significantly only because of learning algorithms, so it knows if it made that mistake before, it won't happen again. But it had to make the mistake a couple of times.
So the self-correcting.
That's what's called learning algorithms. That's all. It's just iteration. I told you about the various levels of iterations that are going on with these vectors.
Hello, sir. My name is 𝗠𝘁𝗵 and I'm an undergraduate from JIT Noida. I have a question that given the mathematical foundations of models like ChatGPT, do you think it's theoretically possible for them ever in future to develop adaptability and self-refining reasoning similar to human brain, not just improving from more data, but by independently revising their own internal thought process?
Maybe. I'm not so sure. But you see, it is all mechanical and algorithmic, right? So I think that the human being is not a robot. That's what I think. The human being is not a robot. So if you're trying to say, can we simulate thought process by this algorithmic process, I would say no. I think the interesting thing is, as I mentioned, the amount of energy that is being used by this ChatGPT just to tell the difference between a cat and a dog is a phenomenal amount of energy. A baby, I don't think, is using that much energy to do that. It's so there's a lot. I think it's premature to say that we figured out what thought is. We haven't.
Thank you, sir.
This is Aditya here.
Hello,
I wanted
sir.
to ask you quick question on the representation of this data. So these transformer models, as you know, as you explained, is taking a lot of energy to predict the next word and subsequently iterate through that. But is there a better way to represent these in knowledge graphs which can answer some of these questions far better?
Good question. At the moment, I don't think anyone knows of any other method except this graph theoretic matrix models.
Hello, sir.
Yep.
This side Nidhi Goel. Actually, I am from mathematics background, but I want to transition into tech industry. So I just want to know what are the techies right now looking into the mathematician so that they can get into an entry-level job where they are working as an AI product manager role.
Well, I don't know about that because I'm a pure mathematician by training, but I can tell you one thing, that you should have a good grounding in pure mathematics before you head out into the this AI world. And if it's clear from my lecture that you should learn certainly linear algebra, you should learn probability theory, you should have these as a foundational knowledge. And then I think if you have that, basic undergraduate linear algebra and probability theory training, then you will be all mathematically prepared for your AI interactions.
Yeah, I am a postgrad in mathematics itself. I do have a published paper in micropolar fluid dynamics also. But right now I want to transition my mathematics career into AI because that is what the future is seeking. So I just wanted to know how to grow my this linear algebra domain, because whatever knowledge we have is of postgrad, and how can it be extended to AI things?
Yeah, well, what is, for example, take Markov theorem. Markov just discovered his theorem as a pure math theorem. He was not really interested in how to apply it. So the mindset that you need to develop in the new emerging world is when you're learning linear algebra or learning probability theory, you learn it, of course, you should know that. But at the same time, you can ask yourself, how can this be used in the real world to solve some real world problems, right? That's the kind of thinking that you have to have. And I think it's just a kind of a slight different perspective on what you already learned. And all of a sudden you will find that there are all these new applications that will come. So that's the kind of mindset you have to develop. Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
Hello,
Sir.
sir. Hello, sir. My name is Fern from Chennai. Hello.
Hi. Yeah. Go ahead.
Sir, actually, I have a doubt. Your webinar is named as Math Behind ChatGPT. But you spoke about general GPT. So the Google's Gemini AI, everything is working under the same process, or everything is different?
No, everything is working in the same process with different tweaks, that's all, but more or less the same.
Okay, sir. But also you have said that some sort of theory or discovery is yet to come to understand these mathematical models, right? What could it be potentially? Is it like a linear algebra or a compilation of discrete mathematics? What it could be?
No. What is needed is I'm asking other questions like this. I'm asking questions like what is thought and what is consciousness, and these questions are not going to be answered by ChatGPT, or they're not going to be answered by mathematics. There may be philosophical questions, but they will be certainly important questions that we have to address as, as a human race, because we don't want to be swallowed by this robotic machine.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir. This is Dr. Anita here from Bangalore. Sir, I had a quick question. Like, whatever ChatGPT gives always seems to be correct. It gives, grammatically correct, and it fascinates. See, to make that, if you ask it to prove something, it might look like people who won't want to justify or clarify, it might look realistic, because the way it justifies. So how can we come over that? As you mentioned, there are some topics which we know we can verify that it's wrong.
Yeah.
But
You're right. Yeah, you're right. No, there at the moment there is no way unless you go and check these things yourself. So it may provide references, and even sometimes the references are wrong.
Yeah, I went. References are completely wrong. But when you ask ChatGPT to create point or an essay, and the contextually correct everything. Maybe the problem with math is when you ask it to write it might ask you a couple of questions related to understand your thought process, but it's not able to do that. So instead of me correcting every time, can't ChatGPT ask us a couple of more questions like you were mentioning about your paper, like before it validates, maybe it takes the first thing that comes up in the search because it's just getting out of the search. So can't it ask you relative questions and then go for the search? Maybe it will be better for ChatGPT to respond that way?
It could. I think some of the refined versions may be doing that. But really, because it's just a very, very sophisticated cut and paste machine. That's what it is. It's a sophisticated.
Thank you very much, sir. Your presentation was really, really good. It was an eye-opening because many times nobody could judge whether it is correct or not unless you go deep into the subject, and we don't know where to look for. So most of us are using ChatGPT like Google it. But use it like
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, use it like a toy. Don't take it too seriously. Use it as a starting point for your own research. Check it out.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir.
Hello, sir.
Sir,
Yeah, go ahead.
good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir. This is Avanish from Chennai, Anna University. You beautifully said that a part of our brain stops working when technologies evolve, and I myself would like to establish my name in the field of academics, especially in mathematics. So, what are the kinds of skills, and how should I be in future if I should not rely on engines like these?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for asking that question. You see, the hardest questions to answer are the simplest questions somehow. Simplest in the sense of simplest to formulate. So what you should perhaps know is the difference between syntax and depth. So all ChatGPT can do is it's manipulating syntax. It never created any of those things. So you should ask yourself, can I create some new mathematics? And in order to do that, you have to ask some fundamental questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, this is Chirag. And I wanted to ask, how do you see a pure mathematician like yourself integrating with these new language models? So for instance, like how can even we upcoming mathematicians integrate new skills? Like could it be like adding lean to our learning, and how can ChatGPT like help us in our future research? Like what's the vision?
Okay, so I would just say that ChatGPT is, think of a ChatGPT as some sort of well-informed librarian. Okay, so you're looking for a book, you're looking for a paper, you don't know where to begin, you can ask the librarian, and the librarian will produce some books, but that's not the end, right? You have to kind of go and process it yourself. So that's about it. That's ChatGPT is a well-informed librarian, and you have to check whether things are right or not.
Okay, I understand.
Sir, I am Musab.
Hello, sir.
Sir, good evening, sir. I am Musab. Just I wanted to. Hello, sir. I am Musab. I feel that the AI is just data-driven knowledge. So, but human brain is something more than that, not just
absolutely.
Data.
Absolutely.
So, the question earlier asked whether ChatGPT can one day take over us. I feel very difficult.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, and that's a personal opinion. I have no proof. I don't think so either.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Hi.
Hello, sir. So thank you for the wonderful session. I'm Ram Kumar, working as a mathematics teacher in a private school in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. It was a wonderful session, sir. Thank you so much for your time. My question is, sir, every model, say for example, a Markov model may determine a future state based on the current state, but not based on what's past. So for example, there are forest fires occurring, happening in Australia, in United States, sometimes in Canada, sometimes in Tamil Nadu. Now, how are these models, will help us to deal with such situations, sir? And one question, see, I mean, I've been in science as well. So my question is, every research has to be focused on, say, for example, pulling out people from poverty or something like that, so that we can contribute to the society in any way. So your thoughts about it, sir? Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah. So, well, these are new tools, and I think that somehow, as I said, pattern recognition is the essence of knowledge, and therefore sometimes the phenomenon could be extremely complicated and very vast for the human mind to see patterns. So maybe we could use the computer to check for patterns. People have used ChatGPT in some clever ways of trying to find patterns in a whole mess of data. In fact, I just finished writing a paper with one of my colleagues in neuroscience, where we were looking at what's called the fruit fly neural network, and we were trying to find certain past patterns in something, and ChatGPT did help us in finding some patterns. So that's basically how you could use it. You could use it as a tool, but you cannot use it as a final arbiter of any knowledge query.
Excuse me, sir.
Just a second, everyone. So we got 5 more minutes to ask question, and I really encourage you to turn your camera on and ask your question after introducing.
Excuse me, sir.
From
My question is ChatGPT, does it mimic human thought, even if crudely, or is it just like an algorithm?
It's just an algorithm. It doesn't mimic human thought. And some people like to say that it does, but I don't think so.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, I am Dharmendra Singh from Kasganj, UP. I want to ask, I read about computer algorithm proof of mathematical theorems. Is it different from ChatGPT algorithm?
Well, I mean, computer algorithms to check things. For example, you may know about the 4-color conjecture, which is now 4-color theorem. And 4-color theorem was proved using computers, where the proof was reduced to a bunch of 100+ cases to check, and you can check that using a computer. Those are computer algorithms. But what is the uniqueness of ChatGPT is that it's trying to simulate human speech and human thought. Simulate. So that's what it's doing. And that's the next phase. It's a very exciting thing. And actually many positive, I might have talked about negative aspects of ChatGPT, but there are also some positive aspects of ChatGPT. And I told you that the best way to use it is as a very well-informed librarian.
Good evening, sir. Myself, Priyapal Handik, and I am an undergraduate student of data science and artificial intelligence. Sir, I wanted to ask you that nowadays quantum mechanical approaches are used in artificial intelligence, and so Google is also using it in research models. So do you think that it will help us in research purposes?
Not that I know of. I mean, it's certainly some parts of research are being helped, but I don't think at the individual level you can rely on any of this.
Okay, sir.
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, my name is Shubham, and I am an undergraduate student from Delhi University. And sir, my question is, like, sir, from GPT 1 to 3, they train their model with the vast amount of data, and now from model from 4 to 5 they start working on something like chain of thoughts. So this chain of thought is again some kind of prediction modeling, and now or it is something different.
No, it's prediction modeling. Same. It's just fancier inputs. It's still the same Markovian model.
Or sir, and in future, will the ChatGPT will be able to solve the real analysis proof?
I'm doubtful, but I'm just saying, if eventually it'll learn from some mistakes, but it'll keep on making more mistakes.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so to conclude, maybe I should just say that the whole, ChatGPT issue raises some very interesting questions. And I think I'd like to put in front of people, what is the mathematics behind Panini's grammar? I think that's something we really have to explore.
Ram, shall I ask one question? Vijay.
Sure.
Yeah. The adjacency matrix that you had mentioned about that weighted graph, actually it is not the actual identity matrix. It's actually, I think, weighted adjacency matrix. Am I right? So
Yeah,
in that
that's right.
case, the matrix need not be symmetric, right?
No.
Okay.
That's right. Absolutely. So by the way, yeah, that's exactly. So this leads us to not think of conventional graphs, but mainly directed graphs. So you may have to kind of go back and redo graph theory, thinking always about directed graphs.
Okay. Another thing, you assure the convergence of the matrix P.
Yep.
Maybe because it's a transition probability matrix, all conditions for the convergence is taken care of, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically that. There's some small technical condition of connectivity which usually is satisfied.
Yeah, it is doubly stochastic, irreducible, positive, definite, everything.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Fine, thank you.
Hi sir, Rinka this side. Currently I'm working on crowd decision making and versus LLM as a decision maker. So while in decision making problems, human crowd makes more noise, and when we give the data to LLM, the LLM actually puts, it prioritizes accuracy more than, noise. So can we say that it just replicates the superhumans and it just ignores the general crowd decision, even if it is getting more probability from the crowd?
Well, I think it might make a bad decision if it's using the crowd data. It's possible. So as I said, all these things have to be taken with a grain of salt. You have to check these things. You cannot simply put something in and accept what comes out.
Excuse me, sir. In the very wonderful question you asked, which is what is the mathematics behind Panini's grammar? As a student, what can I start to study so that I can start attacking that question?
That's a good question. I myself don't know. And I would kind of begin with trying to understand how is it that, if I understand Sanskrit correctly, there's a certain modularity about it, that somehow the order of the words don't matter really. The sentence meaning is unchanged if you kind of permute some of the words around. So there's a uniqueness in, as far as I can tell, my naive understanding of Sanskrit, that Sanskrit seems to have some mathematical properties that are not shared by other languages. So that's where I would consult firstly a Sanskrit scholar and ask how is it that he managed to build a whole grammar. What is the mathematics behind it? You could try to study mathematical linguistics, but I think that's not enough to understand this.
Hello, sir.
Okay,
Hello.
sorry to interrupt. Thank you, everyone. The questions are a great way to seek knowledge. With the limitation of time, we actually have to move to the vote of thanks. Professor Ramurthy, if you like to spend more time and answer question, we are okay with that. Otherwise, we are going to move to the vote of thanks.
Yeah, we can move to the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for confirming, sir. The other questions, we, if it's something very important, you can please put it in the chat box and we will try to sort it out with a very limitation of time. And I'm really happy you have that much of enthusiasm to ask the question. It really shows how great today's talk was. And it's again another piece of happiness to be celebrated and on this Independence Day. So once again, thank you everyone. Thank you, Professor Ramurthy. And to give a professional to give a formal vote of thanks, I'd like to welcome Dr. Rosna, who is a postdoc fellow in Fern University, Hagen, Germany.
Thank you. So I would like to give the vote of thanks. So dear participants, Dr. Bijumon sir and our distinguished speaker, Professor Ramurthy. As we conclude this remarkable section, it is my privilege to extend a heartfelt vote of thanks on the behalf of the Max Aspirants group. First and foremost, our deepest gratitude goes to Professor Ramurthy. We are particularly grateful for the clear and engaging way in which you discuss the math behind ChatGPT. Your talk took us through a beautiful journey touching graph theory, Markov chains, neural networks, and so on. So thank you, sir, for being with us today.
You're welcome.
Then I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Bijumon sir for graciously introducing our speaker and setting the tone for today's section. We are deeply grateful for your support and presence, sir. And a special note of appreciation goes to Ms. Arjuna for her excellent anchoring throughout the session. Your energy and professionalism kept the event flowing smoothly and make sure that everything ran on time. Thank you, Ajna. Now, I would like to extend my thanks to Dr. Vinod Kumar sir, the founder of Math Aspirants Group, whose vision and passion for mathematics have brought us all together. I appreciate its constant efforts to make this event come true. Thank you, sir. And then a big thank you for Unnati and also for Ajna for creating promotional video that brought attention to this event. And along with this, I would like to extend our gratitude to the media, especially India Today and Madhrubhumi, for publicizing this event. And I would also like to thank the rest of our organizing team for ensuring the smooth execution of today's event. And finally, to our participants, thank you for your enthusiasm and finding time to join us on this special occasion. And as we conclude today's session, I encourage all of you to stay connected with Math Aspirants Group. Let's continue to explore, learn, and share our passion for mathematics. We look forward to welcome you to our future events. All the best for all of you, and see you in the next event. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosna. So with that, we are officially winding up today's session. I can still see 200 plus count in the Google Meet. It's very nice to see that. So we are winding up our event. Thank you, everyone.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय जय